Be helpful, right? There we go. How about that? So on behalf of the OAB, the Ohio chapters of the Society of Broadcast Engineers, and the Ohio chapter of the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, welcome to the 16th Annual Ohio Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Conference. And I challenge you to say that 6 times fast. It's great to see so many familiar faces here today, and I'm looking forward to meeting those of you who are attending for the first time. I know that a number of you have been here since our first conference way back in 2003, and you'll probably remember that we were in a really small conference center on the north side of Columbus with Terry Bond. Anybody remember Terry Bond presenting? And we didn't even have any exhibitors, so we've come a long way since then. The conference has evolved through the years, but the core purpose remains the same, and that is to bring together engineering and technical staff from radio and television stations to discuss issues and challenges in the business, and to provide vendors with the opportunity to showcase the latest products and technology needed to succeed in this ever-changing industry. And over the last few years, we've also worked to expand the program to include multimedia professionals working in non-broadcast facilities. This is the one in-person program that the OAB conducts every year and has since I came to the OAB, and it reflects our appreciation for the work that you all do every day, keeping stations on the air, implementing the continual blitz of technology changes, and helping us manage through emergency situations. This conference is for you, and our OAB Board of Directors fully supports the investment of time and resources we make in this conference each year. We have more than 200 attendees and exhibit staff at today's conference, and while most of our attendees are here from here in Ohio, we welcome our friends from Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia who are here with us also. We have more than 50 companies exhibiting from all over the country, including 11 companies attending our show for the first time. Our exhibitors contribute significantly to the success of this conference. Without their participation, we would be a much smaller and less interesting event. In these times of reduced budgets and staffing, we want to ensure that our exhibitors feel that their investment in our conference is worthwhile. And so during the break and over lunch today, please be sure to visit with the exhibitors, see the latest updates from those that you know, and get to know some of the new companies here today. Please thank them for their participation, which helps make this conference possible. You may have seen the great door prizes donated by our exhibitors. We had an initial drawing earlier during the breakfast, and the drawing for the remaining items will be held just prior to our closing general session this afternoon. So if you haven't done so, be sure to drop your business card in the basket at the registration desk, and remember, you must be present to win. So before we begin with our first session, I would like to acknowledge a few groups and individuals. First, our partnership with SBE and SMPTE. While the OAB coordinates the logistics of this conference, we rely upon the local SBE and SMPTE chapters to help promote the conference to their members, and our great turnout today is a credit to their efforts. A list of the chapter chairs is included in the program. I'd also like to extend a special thanks to our conference sponsors. First, the sponsor of today's lunch, the Telos Alliance. Telos has been a strong supporter of this conference for many years as a sponsor, an exhibitor, and a presenter, and we are grateful for their continued support again this year. Next, thanks to Comrex, the sponsor of this morning's breakfast. Comrex is another longtime supporter of this event with their sponsorship and Chris Crump's presence each year as an exhibitor. And we also thank Gates Air, our bag and lanyard sponsor, Nautel, our AV sponsor, and Evert's, our parking sponsor. Let's have a round of applause for all of our sponsors. Thanks also to our 2018 program committee. This group does a great job of developing the conference program each year. I have to tell you, the OAB staff is not technically oriented, and so we need these gentlemen to help us put together the program and ensure that the sessions that we have focus on the most relevant issues facing our industry. Our program committee members have a dark blue ribbon on their name tags, and so we hope you'll share your feedback and suggestions with committee members about how we can improve the conference. And we'll also be sending an evaluation to you next week, and you can provide feedback that way as well. One of our committee members is retiring later this year, and we'd like to take a moment to recognize him. Gary Liebisch from Nautel has been a member of our planning committee since the very early days of the conference, and he has provided important input and suggestions from the perspective of an exhibitor, which has been incredibly helpful to us in ensuring that this conference is a valuable experience for our exhibitors. Gary celebrated his 50th anniversary in broadcasting last week, as a matter of fact, and he started his broadcast career on the air at the college radio station at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York. Let's see if I can do this. Here's a picture of Gary from his first years in broadcasting, and another picture of what he hopes to be doing more of in retirement. Gary's career included positions as chief engineer and group director of engineering for stations in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Cincinnati, and he spent nearly 20 years at the Harris Corporation before joining Nautel in 2007, where he has been regional sales manager for the Eastern U.S. Gary has been involved in many significant projects through the years, including FEMA's recent installation of an emergency pod at the WLW transmitter site in Meisse, Ohio. Gary has served on the SBE Board of Directors and is a lifetime certified professional broadcast engineer. We appreciate all that Gary has done for our industry and for us here at the OAB, and we are grateful for his wise counsel and contributions to our conference. Gary, we have a little something for you to thank you for all that you've done. Where did he go? There he is, right in front. We understand that you and your wife enjoy hiking, and so we hope this will be something that you can use there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Christine, and thank you, everyone, the board and the customers and attendees here. I appreciate this. Is unexpected, but it's very, very well appreciated. I would have been able to retire a couple of years ago, except I had to cut my commissions to the bone to give you all the great deals I've been giving you. So the price I pay for that is I had to work an extra couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Okay. And finally, thank you to our OAB staff members, Carrie Newton, Katie Lovell, Kathy Cooper, and Aaron Thomas, for all of their hard work in coordinating every little detail for today's conference and trade show. And in particular, I'd like to give a shout out to Katie Lovell, who's standing over there. She has been our Director of Marketing Communications, and she's leaving us after 6 years of working with us. Katie has contributed so much to this conference during her time on staff, and in fact, even though she's already started her new job, she wanted to help us through today's conference. So Katie, thank you so much for all your work and best wishes to you. Okay, to introduce the morning's panel is Blake Thompson, our program committee chair. Blake has played an integral role in the growth and development of this conference. He has attended every single one of the conferences since the very beginning and has served as our program committee chair since its inception. In addition to chairing the program committee, Blake became the OAB's ABIP inspector this year and has been doing a terrific job of that this year. And so for those of you who have not yet had the chance to work with him in an inspection at your station, I know you'll enjoy working with him. So Blake, thanks for all you do, and I'll turn it over to you.
Congratulations, Gary. That was very much deserved. As I'm sure most of you are aware, if anybody bought a Nautel transmitter from Gary, he showed up with the transmitter, helped me wrench around the plumbing to get the thing installed. He was in there in the fields getting dirty. It was very much appreciated. So I'm sure everybody else has similar stories to that. Each year our planning committee tries to focus on an opening session on the significant issues facing our industry. In past years, you'll recall we had attorneys providing updates on the latest legal and regulatory developments, and our planning committee discussed the focus for this year's session. Discussion kept coming back to the incredible pace of change in the industry and the need to effectively implement digital technologies, because that's the thing that can and is changing the fastest. Your last digital box is now 2 weeks later obsolete, or you need a new firmware upgrade that they won't send you. So we want to thank the folks at Futuri Media who have assembled a diverse panel of leaders representing different parts of our broadcast and digital industries to talk about the various digital platforms available, and how best to engage. Let me introduce the panel to you up here. Our panel moderator is Jim Tarantine, National Associate Account Manager for Futuri Media. Jim has nearly 20 years of experience in radio sales, program, and corporate work. He joined Futuri Media earlier this year from Nielsen, where he spent more than 12 years, most recently as Director of Client Solutions, leading key initiatives including TV audio integration, digital audio measurement, audio enhancements, and media analysis offerings. Somebody's pulled out their thesaurus. Our first panelist, Craig Bowman, Senior Vice President of Technology at Futuri Media. Craig is an award-winning engineer whose career spans more than 35 years. He has engineered complex media operations for numerous public and private broadcast companies, in addition to owning his own engineering consulting firm. Since 2009, Craig has been involved with the build-out of many of Futuri's SaaS technologies, including Audience Solutions, and among his many industry accolades, he was the recipient of the Carl E. Lee Broadcast Engineering Excellence Award in 2017. So that speaks well. Next is Robert Meisse, President and General Manager of the Midstate Multimedia Group in Mansfield, Ohio. Rob joined Midstate Multimedia in the early 1980s, performing maintenance and technical jobs for his father at the first radio stations of the group, and he was promoted to station manager and president in 2006. Today, the station group has grown to 6 stations, 4 radio with 2 TV, and has one of the most successful small market digital platforms in the country. Robert was instrumental in the development of permissive texting systems that send more than 15 million text messages a year, as well as the development of Alexa Skill and digital products that are now known nationwide. Robert serves on the NAB Radio Advisory Board and RAB Board of Directors and numerous other boards and committees. And last, certainly not least, is Rockie Thomas, Chief Revenue Officer of Media Creek, a holding company and incubator of digital audio-centric companies. Media Creek's portfolio includes such companies as Live 365 and Empire Streaming, focusing on digital audio and podcast, CDN and hosting, microcasting, content curation, monetization services, and an audio advertising technology innovation. Prior to co-founding Media Creek, Rockie was one of the first employees at AdsWiz, evangelizing audio advertisers to buyers and helping publishers monetize their digital assets through AdsWiz audio and insertion technology. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. All right. So I guess I'll go over bios again. No, I'm just kidding. We'll get started. So you might have read in the description of the panel discussion, but I'll kind of recap it, everybody, before I get started. All right. The session's title is Focusing Your Efforts in a Multi-Platform World, Separating Signal from Noise. With all of the diverse offerings that are changing every single day in the media industry and landscape, especially from a technical perspective with the group in the audience today, we've amassed a good, diverse group of leaders on the engineering, leadership, and technical side to talk about some of these issues. And we're certainly going to get into the weeds, which is what you're all interested in from an engineering perspective, but I thought we'd also address some of the concepts of what are we dealing with, why are we dealing with it, and how should we respond to it. So we're going to get into a lot of different topics. The panel's going to talk about a few things, but certainly I'm going to be asking you for your feedback, and if you have any questions or comments or best practices from your perspective, chime in. Sound like a plan? I know it's early. Okay. All right, so why don't we get rolling? And I'm going to start with Rockie. Let's start with kind of the current state of affairs. Where are we in November of 2018 from a digital and broadcast perspective? And digging a little deeper, there's lots of broadcasters who think they should continue to throw all their efforts into growing and selling terrestrial, right? It's our foundation, because that's where they make the most money, honestly. Why should broadcasters care about all these new platforms when today some of their core revenue stream by a long shot is still terrestrial? And when from a measurement perspective, we're still dealing with terrestrial measurement, and some of the digital measurement is all over the place.
That's a lot of load in
Yes.
there. Okay, so
Start with the big one.
That's great. No, I think that at this point, there's really no choice. I mean, I would say 5, 6, 10 years ago, I would tell people like you, yeah, you can go ahead and continue to do what you're doing. You don't have that choice anymore. People are listening, and it's not your choice where they're listening anymore or watching. And it's become mainstream to the point, you always say when your mom does something. My mom figured out what I did 5 years ago. And I do technical solutions. I do ad insertion. So it's not an easy solution. So when you have a 75-year-old mother actually understand this, it's very important for broadcasters to understand their strength. Broadcasters are content creators. And that's actually what we need more of. It's just really about the distribution channels and how we're going to basically monetize those. The other great excitement that I have in the industry, finally people are understanding that on the demand side or the sales side or the advertising side, the words coming out of my mouth. And that's a huge opportunity for a lot of people here because they understand the impact that digital has now, and they're using it themselves. They're either using the Amazon devices, or they're using podcasts, or they're understanding time shifted and on-demand video now, and OTT. It actually is starting to make sense because they're using it every day. So it's very exciting. I will tell you it's very exhausting because as what you guys do for jobs on the engineering side, it's very technical. You're being asked to do things that, I mean, honestly, we call them system administrators now. It's become, very hard for you guys to continue to do your job because it's getting so fragmented. So my hat's off to you guys because I have nothing but admiration for what you guys do.
Rob, so back to some of the part of the question too, was broadcasters that are still putting most of their eggs in the terrestrial basket versus voice, digital, mobile, all those other things. As a leader for TV and radio stations, how do you look at that picture as it changes every single week?
Yeah, you're right. Every single week or every single day. That's one of the biggest problems we have. And of course, I come from probably the smallest market sitting in this room, and it's hard for us to keep up on how these new products develop every single day. But as Rockie said, it's becoming so fragmented. We used to be that people turn on their radio to listen to school closings, and radio dominated that, or the television and the bottom of the screen on television. Well, now I wake up in the morning and I tell Alexa to stop ringing because she's the one that's waking me up now, and I say, Alexa, give me the news or something like that. It's become a what you want when you want it. Everything's on demand now, like the rest of you, we have to figure ways that our product is a part of that. They're not always turning to us on the traditional platforms. So, as the fragmentation happens, we as a company, and we're small, and we don't have a lot of engineering staff to be able to go every single direction. We look at these new opportunities and we decide which ones are the biggest ones. Which ones are growing the fastest, because we can't do them all. And you guys know that. I mean, we're asked to do 10,000 things now opposed to 5,000 things. So we look at the ones that are growing the fastest and that can use products in or close to a form that we already have the products produced. So the Alexa is a great example. We do Alexa flash briefings, which is a semi pre-built skill from Amazon that gives you the local news, and Amazon allows you to monetize it and keep 100% of the revenue. That was a green light for us. As we do these too, we have to figure out how we're going to make money on them. We're not going to just give our content away on another platform and not have a way to monetize it or draw traffic to our sites that are monetizing it. So Amazon was one we picked 3 years ago, whenever it first started, and do flash briefings. And when we pick a product, we make sure that we do it really well. We're not going to have to do a little bit of Google, a little bit of Amazon, a little bit of this and that. So we picked Amazon Alexa, sold it out, produced it. It's produced well, and it's using content. We take the audio. We have radio and television, but we take the audio basically from the television news, and it becomes part of our audio casting on Alexa, and sell it. And so now we're reaching users on those devices and our content. We are the only ones in the market doing it, and we own that market now.
So to just as one follow-up to that, how do you prioritize that? Obviously, you still have television and radio at your core, but now there's podcasting, on demand, digital, there's revenue implications, there's smart, there's voice, not only where the audience is going, but where the money is going. How do you work with your technical teams to prioritize those different platforms?
Our on-air product always still remains first because it's the largest. Our other products, though, again, kind of goes back to if we're going to do it, we're going to do it well. So we will actually sit with the news director and discuss how we're going to make sure this product is updated. Is there a source of the content that we're going to distribute on that platform already produced that's easy to move to this product? You know, you have to kind of look at each one separately because they're, so Alexa, we're only doing audio. Or, and then you can now do video on Alexa. We have not gone to that step yet. That's probably one of our next one, but the penetration is not there yet. So we'll go through those steps and see which one is the easiest in our workflow. Talk to sales. Sales, see what sales thinks. The sales loves it. Once you show them the product, and I'll bring Alexa and sit her in the sales meeting and start talking to her, and she plays a sponsorship, in our news, and the salespeople are like, wow, I can sell that in 2 seconds. Yeah. And then they all run home and buy Alexas and put them in their living room, and they love it, because it's kind of what you want when you want it. Our sales department loves being first in those because they're usually pretty easy to sell. Because you go to the client and the same thing. If they have an Alexa at their house, your client, you're sold. I mean, and luckily in our case, we don't have as much competition in our market as some of the bigger markets. So that case, a small market is a little bit easier for us because we usually are the leader in most of those.
Okay. So I don't like to use this cliche anymore, so I'm going to say it as a negative, right? But there's always a shiny new toy, right? But a lot of the shiny new toys that were 10 years ago are now not shiny new toys anymore. They are existence. And dovetailing on what Rob was talking about, Craig, smart speakers, voice, right? For radio, it's getting radio back into the home. The old radio in the shower. I remember at Arbitron and Nielsen, we used to do all kinds of studies about how many people are listening to the radio in their bathroom and why aren't the PPMs picking it up, right? People weren't listening to the radio in their bathroom, by the way. Anyway.
They weren't wearing their meters.
They weren't wearing their meters either. Right? They didn't get electrocuted.
In the shower.
But
Yes.
beyond that, now with Alexa, whether it's on our phone or whether it's a device in our bathroom, radio's back into the home, okay? So is this just hype? Or for radio, is it just a different way to stream their station? Like where, and Rob touched on some of the next levels of voice, but where are we and where are we going? What's the logical next step that the folks in the room should be aware of? Excuse me.
Well, 2 years ago when we began our Alexa development at Futuri, our growth plan was to offer the ability for radio stations to sell sponsorships, obviously, but you could ask Alexa, where's the best happy hour in town? And a sponsorship could cover that happy hour. Trying to have Alexa be a way to communicate all of the things that we now, as broadcasters, as professional broadcasters, consider clutter, but people still want to hear into the home. So you could ask Alexa, what is what's lunch at Stranahan High School? And it would tell you, at happy hours, these, even daily devotionals. We have some religious broadcasters that do those too. So, Alexa really is, the big radio set in the living room. And I don't know how, I would imagine most of you have them, but I can't remember.
How many people have a smart speaker in the room? Okay.
When was the last time you touched a light switch? That's the first thing. My apartment building in Cleveland, my neighbors laugh because as the door opens, I'm like, Alexa, turn on the living room lights, and the lights come on as I've got my bag. So it's really become part of my life. I've got several.
Okay.
And I think that the smart speakers are going to start changing how we view, too, on the TV side, because I know we're a little bit radio-centric here, but a lot of this is going to start, one of my biggest complaints about Netflix and a lot of the, or even trying to find something on the broadcast is trying to find the programming. And I think what really what the whole voice idea of asking, okay, I'm looking for sci-fi, because I'm a sci-fi geek, no surprise. I'm looking for something that has sci-fi on right now. I don't want to scroll through. Give me some suggestions, and then having the TV show. I think you're going to start seeing more of those type of applications, especially with TV. Or are the Broncos playing right now, because I'm out of Colorado? Or is there anything that's on ESPN? Like, how are we going to basically use the voice to have those programming curation opportunities? And I think that's going to be really exciting. And then also the restacking and curation of local content. Like, I want all the high school sports highlights for the past month. Maybe I missed some. I want to see all my high school football, and I want it stacked. So stack up all of this, and then why don't you even make it like for sale? So, ephemerally, someone could buy the rights from a private standpoint and send it to, or email it to, your grandmother to see the highlight of her son, or grandson playing quarterback in a game. I mean, there's so many fun things that we could be doing, and I think that you're just going to see on demand and voice, and then also the curation and the reassembly of this content in new ways. And I don't think linear's dead. When I say linear, I'm talking simulcast broadcast, just so I can get our name, because I think that's why you see esports and a lot of stuff doing well, and why server-side ad insertion is starting to become a thing for video. See, when I used to talk to video guys, like in the engineering, 8 years ago, I'm like, are you guys doing SSAI, server-side ad insertion? Like, no way, you audio people are crazy. You have no control of the client. Yeah, I mean, it's like, how would we even do that? And I'm like, there's going to come a time when you guys are going to have to do that, because especially for broadcast sports, that is what is going to be one of your big programming opportunities. And so now they're doing server-side ad insertion on video. So what I've noticed is that audio has become more like video in the past 10 years, and video has become more like audio. So you're starting to see that live simulcast is becoming really large on digital platforms for TV, and then radio is becoming more on demand, which is kind of interesting with the podcasting, and everything's being very eaten in those type of little small bites. So I think it's exciting, because I think it's really nothing that none of us cannot, we all understand the concepts. The concepts haven't changed of our business, it's just how we're assembling them. And we have such great power because we create the content. I don't know if anybody you have a web team. Content creation, it takes a lot of time to do. And you have to have good people to go ahead and do it. Okay, I'm done, okay.
That's what we have always told our staff, or other conventions I've spoke at, that we do three things in our broadcast industry. We collect information and we process it. Those two things will never change. I mean, that's what makes us what we are as broadcasters. The third thing is we deliver it, and for years we put it on the radio, we put it on television. That's all we did, and then this thing called digital came along, and it is turning things upside down. Our industry is turning into a wired industry. Our content is becoming a wired. It used to be, that we put out as many watts as we could and sent that signal as far as we could, and those days are going away. We are turning into a wired industry, and it's also becoming an on-demand industry. So we picked, our PDs picked what the public wanted, or what he thought the public, or she thought the public wanted, and we sent it out to everybody. Well, that wasn't what everybody wanted. We always would say it is, but it wasn't always that case. And digital is allowing us to become more one-on-one. I can give each one of you what you want, same time. So that distribution platform is just totally changing and will continue to change. And it's overwhelming sometimes with all these devices, but you have to when you want to leap into one of those, you have to pick one. And you do some research on, in your market, which one is going to be the most effective for you, and do it well. Then pick another one and do it. You can't do them all. You just physically cannot do them all.
Well, one of the things that Rockie mentioned was high school sports, right? And you're one of the largest broadcasters of high school sports in Ohio. There's also this misconception sometimes that on-demand or digital or even voice competes with terrestrial. As you look into things like voice for video and on-demand content as a complement to your live broadcasts, how do they fit together?
Well, the voice portion it kind of gets rid of the searching aspect of trying to find that content. That's how we work as humans. Give me the Ontario football game, and let the computer find who produced it, who delivered it, and where it's at, and then whatever device I'm talking to. So, our high school sports, like you said, last year we did 156 high school football, basketball, and soccer games on television. We probably are one of the most in the country. All of those games, high school football in Ohio, are not allowed to do live yet. Hopefully that will be changing. Basketball, soccer, volleyball, we are allowed to do live. We deliver that on the air live. We deliver it online live. We deliver it online on demand. You can go back anytime, bring up your school. You can see every single game we've done for that school on demand. The on-demand viewership is just going through the roof. Ironically, high school soccer is significantly higher than high school football, which just blows me away. I can't totally figure that one out, but but our usage is going up and up and up and up and up every month, and it's allowing people to watch exactly what they want when they want to. And it's you can't deny the growth, and you can't not be in it. And we sell it in the way that our clients get to be on all of those platforms. So if you buy a commercial in the game, you are in the game on every single product we deliver it on. Because we're in the business of delivering eyeballs to that commercial. And if they watch it on television live, great, you just got those eyeballs. If they watch it on their cell phone live, great, we got those eyeballs too. And it actually, our reach is going up, because there were people who could not make it to the television at 7 o'clock because they were at the mall with their wife sitting there while she's shopping and in the little chairs at Polaris just screwing around on their phone, and now they became an eyeball that we captured that we would have never had before. So our reach is actually growing.
Yeah, that's certainly one thing, and you guys have seen all of the stats from Nielsen and others, where media consumption is growing. It's not instead of, it's in addition to, right? So radio reach has never been higher, 93%. We all have that ingrained in our brain. So people continue to view and listen to traditional as well as augment that stuff. Let's go back to streaming a little bit. Any stations in the room not streaming yet? Okay, I see one. Not a lot, but there are still stations every now and then on the TV or the radio side not streaming. Craig, let's focus on you with this one. There are stations who aren't streaming for a number of reasons, and you deal with stations around the country. Why? What are the limitations, whether it's from a technical side or from a measurement side? Like, why wouldn't stations on the audio or video side still not stream?
Well, this is broadcasting, so the first answer is always going to be it's money. It costs. We honestly have clients that will want to turn their stream off overnight because they don't want to pay streaming fees, even though we don't charge extra for bandwidth. But they just have that mindset that this is expensive, and I'm paying what for 50 people to listen, and I equate it to a friend of mine's a restaurateur, and he's in a resort area by a lake, and I go see him at lunch often, and I'm the only one in the restaurant. And I said, why in the world do you open for lunch? This is crazy. And he said, well, I always felt that if somebody wanted to grab the door handle to come in, that it should open. And I feel the same way about streaming. If somebody's out of town, wants to listen to your radio station, or in town. I mean, we're, just introducing, 196 or 128K AAC streaming audio, because now everybody's, getting faster internet, so it's fine for phones. And, it really sounds beautiful, especially for an AM station that, is maybe has some music product that they want to get out there and have a higher fidelity. It's a real cheap way to make a great sounding signal. And as you mentioned, you have the power of your radio station to drive people to your app. And we also manufacture apps. The more successful stations look at the app as if it's another station, or look at Alexa as if it's another station. We'll give away concert tickets. Wake up, use the alarm clock on our app, and the alarm clock will go off and tell you the word that you need to text me at 4:20 in the afternoon. And so now you've driven the downloads where there are push notifications in the apps that help with promotions, as well as, disasters and alerts and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it really opens up a whole nother opportunity to reach people, not only people that you don't currently reach, but to reach people that you reach that may not necessarily be in a position right now to consume you off the air. I know I moved to Lansing, Michigan many years ago. I am a Michigan State fan, by the way. Make that really clear. Make that really clear. I'm a State fan.
And we're done.
And I'm rooting for Ohio. So,
A little dangerous.
but it's a very big, obviously General Motors, but the state of Michigan is there. And we were at WFMK, Light Rock 99, and callers would call and make request songs, or they'd win contests or whatever, and they would always say, "Where do you work?" Well, I can't really say, because they work for the state of Michigan. They weren't allowed to listen to the radio, but they were, but they can they have a computer in front of them. So they can listen to the radio station at work on the device on their desk, kind of covertly.
Right. Well, as a Columbus resident, me preventing myself from any number of jokes that I could just add to that last statement.
Michigan State.
I will stop. I said, yeah. All right, so let's get into the weeds a little bit. This is Craig and Rockie's wheelhouse, and a lot of people in the room. I'm about to throw out some things that I don't understand, so I'm not going to talk much about it. Are all streams created equal? You touched on it a little bit. What's the right way to stream? What's the wrong way to stream? Let me throw out a few things to kind of get the conversation started. And if anybody has anything to add, feel free to raise your hand and we can talk about it too. HLS versus IceCast, balanced audio, dedicated servers, encoders, load balanced redundant data centers. I'm getting a little tough here. Stream monitoring, notification, support, stateside or overseas support, right? Streaming with a single platform computer. Do I need hardware or do I go into the cloud? Custom software, player support, apps, desktop players, remote access, configuration. I think I threw out a lot of different concepts, but Rockie, since Craig just talked, and I'm getting over the Michigan statement, why don't you get started on some of these things, and then I can certainly add to it.
Well, I'll hit the first one, like on HLS and IceCast, which is streaming, and there's similarities in video as well, but I think it's been one of our biggest kind of advancements in the past 10 years. There hasn't been a whole lot going on that side. I mean, we were IceCast, Shoutcast for like 20 years, and I think the biggest difference between like HLS and IceCast is one is a persistent connection to a server, and the other one is like chunked up data that's reassembled pretty much anywhere. It's like, serving web files almost. It makes it very easy for cellular towers to consume, and you don't have, like, if you have a drop or you're moving from one tower to the other, you don't have that stop and that rejoin. It's just because it's sent out in 10-second chunks typically, it just picks up and keeps on going. I'll be honest, it took me a while to get in the HLS camp because there's not a whole lot of player support. And that's always been a big issue. And so if you're Pandora or you're Spotify or iHeartRadio, or if you own your own station app where you own the end listening environment, HLS is really exciting. It works well, it sounds well, it reduces a lot of cost on hosting and streaming. But if you distribute off platform, you're always going to need a fallback still. And so when you're, like I said, if you're Pandora, iHeart, where you own, the only way that you can listen to Pandora, the only way you can listen to Spotify is in their environment, HLS is a great solution. But if you have something that kicks off, it's still a good solution, but you still have to have a little bit of the old IC laying around. But, it's exciting just because I think that the codecs that we're seeing on the video side, where you're starting to split out the audio from the video, so when the video goes away, you're just kicking out an audio stream to save bandwidth. And then also a lot of I know TV guys are using that for their podcasts and everything else. It's an easy way to what I call split the streams up. That's exciting because that just means it's less production time for your team to have to do it. So whenever we have these type of technology advancements, that makes it, oh my gosh, easier on the engineering side. Because I'll be honest, guys, it hasn't got much easier. I mean, my husband's is a solution engineer. He's been doing stream engineering for 20 years, and he's bald, by the way, now, because it's like, it really is not, everyone thinks it's easy, and like in podcasters, like, I'm just going to do this podcast, and it's going to be easy, and I'm like, nothing's easy. Creating good content is not easy. Distributing content is not easy. It's getting easier. It's getting more stable. I would say, the years of bad ad insertion where you would have, bad, like a latency on the metadata where it would insert, but then it would be kind of off. We had phasing issues. That's pretty much gone now, which is great because it used to make me cringe that we would put that product out because you wouldn't let that product go over the air. It's weird. We had different values for digital versus over the air for years. And I was like, that sounds like crap. I mean, my program director would be running down to my engineer if they had, why did we have this idea that digital can be kind of, done halfway? And to your point, I think it's great because I think if you're going to do something, do less, but do it well. Because there's such a lack of, I guess, patience nowadays. Think of, when something doesn't load fast, what's the first thing you do, guys? You back out of it. You're like, I'm done. You hit that X. We're so impatient now. And I think that we really have to look at our digital products as they're over-the-air products and really make sure that they're to the level that you expect. And I think that's what's really exciting to me. So the past 5-6 years, I've been seeing that from the top, because that's really gets fed from the top, is that we're starting to look at it as a true product. And that, to me, is where we should be, because we do it better than everyone else. So we should make sure all of our assets are like that. So you can go ahead and talk more, Craig. You can go talk about the guts. You go on the guts side.
Yeah, and to that point, when we started in streaming, we built custom boxes, and we decided to call them streaming transmitters because we wanted reliable, rugged, balanced audio, redundant power supplies. We wanted all the options that you would want in a real transmitter, a broadcast transmitter. Actually got in trouble in the country of Brunei because they said it had to go through somebody because it was called a transmitter. So that would
it wasn't gold laid in like the sun.
Right. Yeah, because the transmitter had to go through like the Minister of Cameras and Radios or something. And so that one we labeled as just an encoder. But we have a Linux-based custom solution. We use HLS between the station and distribution, which really helps for poor internet connections. And again, that streaming product goes back about 8 years when it was much more of a concern then. But the reliability, we just do not miss blocks of audio that are sent. It just doesn't happen. And then once it gets to the distribution center, then we create IC streams or HLS depending on what the device is. But balanced audio inputs, support. There are. As an engineer, I know the importance of support, and there should be a phone number that you call. And if you can't talk to somebody right away, there should be somebody there to call you back. Who doesn't know if you dial 217-222-8200 who will answer the phone? Everybody knows Harris's phone, Gates Ayers phone number. My apologies.
It's kind of scary.
Well, yes, but somebody's, that nice lady in the middle of the night's going to answer the phone. She's going to call somebody who's going to get it back. We've as I travel the country and talk to people, support for streaming and other companies has not been given quite, the level of importance that it is for us. And, my phone number is on every email I send. People can always call me and we'll get things done. Just to that point, the Canadians seem to be a little ahead of Americans in streaming, and it might be just because there's so many remote areas. I mean, we have clients in Red Deer and just very remote places, but they monitor their stream. I mean, they have like off-air monitors. If anything goes down, they know it, and we need to rise to that level of commitment to our streams as well. The distribution, I'm getting carried away there, but
no, you're fine.
But distribution, make sure that you have data centers or CDN that have multiple data centers that have load balancers that do health checks on servers, so that if a server goes down, it's thrown out of the pool, and and you continue to work. I know that Rockie, she's a CDN, I'm a CDN, and I know that we both absolutely pay attention, to these sort of things. So as you choose a provider, these are some of the questions that you might want to ask. And from a support standpoint, that's one of the reasons we built the streaming transmitter, because as an engineer, before we got into streaming, usually the streaming computer was like the receptionist's old computer that we shoved the audio card in, and it's just sitting on a bench somewhere.
XP.
Oh, right. And we all know that the receptionist until then had the worst computer, and now it's the streamer. So calling, company A or B or C with a tech problem on a 20-year-old Dell, you're both pretty hamstrung. So it was very important for us to supply the hardware, not because it's proprietary or you have to buy it from us, so that when you call support, somebody knows exactly what they're helping you with. And all of it, we have reverse SSH links into the machines, so we can, from our building, you can dial into any of our transmitters, and I can help. If your configurations change, as long as it's online, we can address it and we can help you. And I just think, that and Rockie does, they don't provide transmitters, but
it's actually a really smart. It's a really smart solution, because it's one of the biggest challenges we all run into. It's like, okay, what do you see on your screen, and then you're trying to remote in, you're trying to fix this, and it's really hard. Or you're dealing with engineers that might be contractual, so they might not even know the encoder or the transmitter system, and they're looking on the bottom of it, going, "Oh, this is from 2005, Ando Media." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's like a classic," and a testament to them too that 13 years later it's still running. So
Yes.
I will give my competitor credit on that one. So it's at least stable enough that it keeps on running. But I think that what you guys do is it's an easy solution to sometimes a very complex problem. But I think also you have some engineers who just really like to geek on and really fine tune themselves. So you have two camps, right? You have one that basically wants plug and play, and then you have the other one who I call him the artist. The creative one that that wants to make, and that's great. I think you have two types of people, and I think it's serving products for both sides of those type of organizations.
So I've done all my due diligence. I've done all my best practices to get everything right technical. I know the right way as a technical person to make sure my streams and all my stuff is operating properly. How do things like policies impact those things that aren't in my wheelhouse as an engineer? For example, simulcasting versus dynamic ad insertion, or from a Nielsen perspective, we used to call it TLR, total line reporting. Nielsen rules, at least with audio, right? I have to listen for 5 minutes to get 15-minute credit, and if I'm doing on-demand or podcasting, I have to listen to that within 24 hours for that to be credited. And if I'm not 100% simulcast, 24/7, ads and otherwise, I'm not total line reported anymore. And certainly the IAB has their own policies on things like that too. How do we address total line reporting versus not total line reporting, simulcast versus not simulcast, as we evaluate all the technical stuff we have to do? Who wants to throw that out there?
Because I think it's interesting that actually I was going to have you talk her up, because I will talk about it because I have a very strong opinion about it. But I think it's interesting from a local standpoint for you, because I think that the way that you're telling us earlier, so I wanted you to share this with I'm sorry, I'm doing your moderation job. You're talking earlier beforehand of how I think it's interesting that when you put on a client, you put them on all distribution channels. So, what's your theory? Why do you do that? I mean, because you're in unrated markets, so really this has no.
That's true.
But I think it's applicable to larger markets as well.
Well, and I was going to jump in the last conversation, the last topic, with the streaming. And this is not engineering's problem, but engineering has to deal with it in the fact that the content that we're putting on the streams. You can have the best streaming hardware in the world, but if the content the actual audio content is not radio ready, and for years a lot of radio stations were preempting the spots and replacing them, and they didn't have them sold, so they're running 16 PSAs in a break. Their audio levels are all over the place. I mean, you have one spot you can't hear, the next spot's overmodulated. It's bad radio. And that's been a huge problem with I think of our industry and our streams over the last, since streams have been around. It is starting to get better. Now that the penetration's there, I think the stations are looking at it saying, well, maybe we really should pay a little more attention to this. Most stations don't even monitor it. It's amazing the streams you go to that don't work. You click on them and the encoder's obviously dead, and in the building, they probably have no idea. Unless the engineer just happens to go by and hooks it to a multi-monitor and notices that it's XP and it's crashed. Our drive is bad. So that's one side that engineering needs, because you need to pay a little more attention to that to make a good product, and the management's fault and things like that too. But we do not replace the spots. We carry our OTA signal as is. A couple reasons. One, there's so many products, there's so many things to sell that, our salespeople already have a ton of products to sell. And now I'm going to give them another one. It's going to get half sold or quarter sold, and is just not going to be a good product. So we had made the determination that our streams are going to be exactly identical to our on-air product, except for pre-roll and post, so that we really have a product that sounds good on the stream, because we are responsible for delivering ears and eyes. That's what we do, and we promise that to our clients. And if you're gonna stop listening to me on your car radio and you're gonna start listening to me on my app, that wasn't an eyeball or an ear I gained. That was somebody that switched devices. So I retained that listener. I never lost them to the new technology. I don't see it fair to our clients losing that ear, to a new device and them not being there. So that's how we look at it. I know there's different, if you have a sales team sitting around with nothing to do because everything's sold out, which I'm sure that's not a lot here, then you give them another product to sell. But none of us have that problem. We have too many things sold, and again, I kind of go back to that same philosophy. We're going to do it, we're going to do it right.
So what about the other side? Is there a benefit to dynamic?
Okay,
Yeah?
so then, this is a way, because I dealt with a lot of guys who have top 50 markets, and they might be PwC or, Miller Kaplan, and they actually know what a rating share is and all the other great stuff. It really comes down to a math problem. One of my best markets in TV when I was at Tribune was Indianapolis. It outbilled digitally New York City, LA, some of my Chicago, even the mothership of Tribune. It actually outbilled, and so I think it really comes down to what the team looks like locally. So sometimes you'd have great teams. Grand Rapids was a great team, actually, and where you would have really strong teams that could sell digital assets. Then I had other teams that no matter how many times I try to explain to it, they just weren't getting it. And so it becomes a math problem, I guess is my point, is that you basically need to figure out what is a rating share worth in your market, how many people are listening online typically, what's your panels looking like, and then what do you think are you going to be able to make more money getting a higher rating share in that market and then selling OTA and simulcasting? Or do I replace an ad in market with a better paying local digitally ad inserted spot? And it really comes down to math. It's a very unemotional thing that you have to kind of look at it from that. But what I started doing at AdsWiz is I found an opportunity to basically put the inventory that was outside of the metros, the Nielsen metros, and put it on a programmatic network. So what I did is I was able to say, listen, if I'm in Chicago and I'm listening to WBS in Atlanta, do I really want to hear about the local barbecue place that I don't live in? No, I want to basically have advertising that's relevant to me. And I'm a firm believer that advertising actually is content. I know everyone's like, oh my God, that's such an ad girl to say that. But actually, if you give me ads about, what the best skiing is at Breckenridge or Vail, or, how to make my kids smart, or good wine, good travel, Macy's, what the latest sell at Dillard's, or tell me when Social Distortion is even in Denver, because I want to hear some music. I'll be responsive to your ads. Not so much about Home Depot and AutoZone, or even Progressive. Sorry, Flo. But it did work. I did go with Progressive this last time. So, the thing is I think the whole idea of dynamic ad insertion is relevancy. Because I think relevancy is what makes people actually want to act upon something, not hammering them with a frequency of 10 till they're, blind in their head. It's just, and that's the other thing that, frequency, what we do is that dynamic ad insertion allows us to frequency cap and go, okay, we're going to go, the rule of 3, we're going to go the rule of 5, but we're going to stop. Because we're able to track unique users one-on-one. So it becomes actually a very different type of messaging that you need to do. And I think from the simulcast standpoint, I think either one of them is actually fine. I always like to work with people that says, let's make logical sense about it. Because if you're going to go ahead and simulcast 100% in market, and the reason why they do that is if you're counting that person on a digital stream from an advertising standpoint, it's a point or a grip or a CPP. If I'm going to be counting them and you're inserting an ad, that's kind of rating fraud a little bit, because especially on the TV side, you have to post. So that's why they want to keep it pure, is because they're putting your ratings and you're getting bought on that consolidated audience. That's the reason why, and that's why this becomes a math problem. If you have a very good local sales team that make more money than that rating share, I'd be inserting ads all day.
And we saw, I mean, to your point about out of market, we saw Nielsen relax their total line
Yes.
reporting rules so that you still can get total line reporting credit if it's in the metro or DMA for television, but if it's out of market, you can insert there and it won't affect your.
I was
local
very
number.
happy. That made my sales pitch a lot better. I was very happy to hear that.
Well, yeah, in a lot of the mobile apps and the ad providers, can target in market, out of market, and there are even some opportunities out there where you just don't even pay for it. I mean, it's hands off. You have your commercials marked as replaceable, and in the market, everybody hears your spots, but out of market, they hear AutoZone or they hear. I'm sure you would know the list.
Oh, I know.
But,
I do.
quite well. But I do have a question, Jim, for the
me?
moderator. Yeah.
Oh, no,
because-
I'm the moderator. I'm not allowed to
yeah,
answer your question.
Well, it brought up an interesting point about the ratings fraud concept, and it was something I hadn't thought about in a long time. If I'm in a PPM market,
How many people are PPM markets? I just want to know if this. Oh, geez.
Okay, it's
Oh.
so if I'm in a PPM market and my stream's encoded, and I do 6-minute spot breaks that aren't encoded, if I replace them, what's that going to do to me?
Technically, if you mean I'm inserting different ads that are not
Yes.
encoded
Yeah,
in
so
my
if
break,
I'm-
okay.
If I'm doing
so
ad
from
replacement locally.
yeah, that breaks your total line reporting
Right.
rules as according to Nielsen.
Well,
right?
no, just not even. But the stream would be, the stream would be measured differently.
Right. So
But I'm combining that rating when I'm selling it.
that's
Does
and
that-
that's completely fine,
If-
right?
if I'm there
That's up
with-
to the local seller to have that conversation with the advertiser. If I feel confident talking to the advertiser to say you have a choice, we can put your ad on the stream and over the air, and we'll combine it, and I can justify it. I can do that manually in my tap scan or whatever software I use to generate a number. From a policy Nielsen standpoint, it's one or the other. You're either total line reported, where you're 100%,
Okay.
or you're not. But Nielsen supports local sellers to be able to tell their story and combine their numbers however they see fit. Unfortunately, if I'm at an agency in Chicago, that might not translate to me from Columbus, Ohio, that I'm manually comboing a number versus Nielsen doing it for me.
Well, and the other issue was after the American Federation of Radio and TV Announcers, that whole thing that no one's ever been sued in the 20 years of them always threatening. I don't know if you guys know, this is the whole reason why we started doing radio ad insertion 20 years ago, and this is why it sucked for so long, is because the program directors had to do it because they're afraid they're going to get sued because of the voice talent fees. So the whole idea is voice talent fees are based on your market that you're basically, so Budweiser does an ad and it's being distributed in New York and Dallas. They figure out the population of those markets, and that's how they ascertain the voice talent fee for the big, after guys. So when it's digitally, it's the whole entire world. So it was like 300 times the voice talent fee. So that's why we started doing ad insertion, is to basically get out the after voice actors, which are pretty much all your major, agency buys, like your Budweisers, your McDonald's, and all the other stuff. And then basically either reproduce it with local ads. To your point, like if you have the conversation, McDonald's want to put a local ad with like a non-after talent, you can go ahead and put it in. But the thing is that no one's ever been sued on this. If you look at the after rules, you'll see that it's on there. And this goes for TV too, by the way. But no one's ever done anything, which is kind of funny. I just think it's ridiculous.
I think we could probably talk about this concept for a long time, but I want to pivot.
Sorry. Pivot.
I want to pivot. Let's talk about podcasting, okay? And I'm putting in quotations on purpose because podcasting can mean so many different things, and the difference between podcasting and on demand can mean so many things. I want all the panelists to kind of contribute here, but Craig, why don't you start? Podcasting versus on demand, how those things impact social. What's the difference? What words should I be using? Does it matter? All right. How is podcasting evolved? I mean, anybody at the RAB this year? I think every other word was podcasting, but in my brain I kept thinking about, well, what do you mean by podcasting? So why don't you talk to that, and then certainly with the video and audio and your expertise, Rockie, too, let's talk about podcasting as we wrap up.
Well, podcasting is just long form, and on demand is snackable bites, the Knuckleheads in the News bit that the morning show does every week, to be able to cut that up and put an image on it and ship it out and get it on Facebook and Twitter, whatever social media you want, like immediately or at least quickly and easily, is very important. It's a very important strategy that I think everybody should be having. But also, podcasts, I think, it is, as a platform, gives talent a great opportunity to use the power of the station to help sell themselves and their particular talents and interests. If oddly enough, three of us are like craft beer Brewers Guild members in various states, and if you have a big interest in craft beer, you're a disc jockey, you could do a weekly or monthly craft beer podcast, and you could pitch it on the air and have it at the radio station's website, and just another outlet. Then you can sponsor that, share that revenue with the station. You can make yourself more a part of the community via the original podcast material, but then also the on-demand to help sell the radio station and its bits and bring people back to the radio.
So Rob, on Craig's point, the traditional view of a podcast of I go to Apple, I download the whole show or I listen to the whole thing, versus the snackable social sharing brief content. How has that evolved for you of what's most important for your eyes and ears?
Well, I don't use the terminology the same as you do. I don't even use the word podcast. I don't like the word.
Yeah, I don't either. But it's the space.
It's what you're doing with that content.
It's Kleenex.
To make the content viewable when someone wants it. We call it on demand. We call it all on demand. But we of course, we have a lot of local programming. We have a significant amount of local programming on the television side and radio. And we take 100% of our local content and put it online, broken up into shows. So the high school sports, you can go watch those games. You can watch. We have 8 or 10 different weekly half-an-hour shows we do. Those all go online, both video, audio. Any local product we have, we put online on demand in what we call the video room, which is just basically a category of topic-specific viewing of that content.
What about do you consider things like the winning touchdown in Lexington at part of that? Like it's on demand in 15-second chunks or shared across Facebook and things like that.
Yeah, we'll go through and repurpose our content. So high school sports, we do something called the Play of the Week. Because we do so many games, we'll go through every week and pick the best play from every single game. So we have 12 or 15 every week, the length of a football touchdown run, which is 15 seconds. 2 seconds. Sell a sponsor to it. It's got an in and an out. We put it on our site. We put it on Vimeo. It's part of a contest where people can come and vote. And so in a football season, we may have had 400 or 500 awesome plays from all these different games. And
do those get the most eyes and ears compared to the long form?
I would say so. We're really restrictive about putting our content on platforms for free we can't monetize.
Okay.
So kind of going, Facebook is our largest social platform for both likes and followers and traffic generated to us. We're on the other ones, but Facebook by far is dominating it. I don't like Facebook's rules. I don't like doing things for companies that they control the rules, that they seem to change every other day. And it's really hard to figure out when the rules change. Sometimes you don't even know. So we very limitedly give things to Facebook. The only way we'll do it is when it is either drives traffic back to one of our pages and the content's there, and then we're monetizing it with our pre-rolls and our banners and things like that. Or it's going by the Facebook rules and doing a handshake with your sponsor, and then we'll give Facebook the actual video. And that's what this client is requested. I mean, Perfect Ones, they're huge down here. Ohio Health does that with us. They see the value in that, and you can only do that with companies who understand it. Being a small market, we got a lot of clients who don't understand why they're buying advertising. They're buying it for the wrong reasons, and they're buying the wrong things. So, but Ohio Health, they understand it, they get it, they see the value in it. That's what they want. So those segments that they're a part of, we do allow that video to kind of be released to Facebook under Facebook's rules. But it's scary because, I mean, we've put a lot of investment and time into it, and Facebook could change the rules tomorrow, and it brings that to an end. So we very limitedly do that, if that's a word, limitedly.
Rocky, I hate to put you on the spot. You have 2 minutes because I want to leave time for questions.
That's fine.
Give me your 2 minutes on podcasting on demand as it sits November 2018.
Absolutely. I tried to get a change to audio on demand. I almost got pushed out the IEB committee with flames from every podcaster who's been doing it for 20 years. So that will definitely fail. I think what's really interesting to me is how much podcast is like traditional radio. I mean, where did the average quarter hour come from, guys? It was episodic radio and Little Orphan Annie and George Orwell in the 1940s. So it's kind of interesting that we have gone full circle with podcasts into episodic programming, because that's what podcast is considered. On demand is what these guys were saying, it's usually time-shifted content. Podcasters will typically, and I say this because I've been flamed on this, is that it has to be considered episodic in nature. There's also currents, which is like your news, like your NPR news and stuff. But usually it needs to have some sort of thematic, feeling or a season around it. So I think it's interesting that we've come full circle in almost 100 years, that we are now doing what we did 100 years ago, and then we're calling it podcast. So I think that I think we're always going to have some sort of naming issues. I think at the end of the day, does it really matter what we call it? My mom doesn't care. Most people don't care. They just want to consume it easily. Podcast is not easy to consume still. It's fragmented on iTunes, and you're having a 50% consumption rate on download still, which makes the metrics go crazy. But I see it becoming more stringed together, and then what's going to happen, it's all going to be put into like a playlist, and oh my gosh, we're going to have AM radio again. So, I mean, it's just going to come back into circles where you're going to start seeing all of How Stuff Works stuff. You have a science channel that's all going to be How Stuff Works, and, quick and dirty tips and all this other stuff. And then you're going to have finance, where you're going to have marketplace, and you're going to go have like the Indicator, Planet Money, maybe a little bit of, Cato Institute on the side. So you basically have curated streams that are just going to become radio again. That's what's going to happen.
Sounds good to me. All right, so we've been talking for about an hour. What questions do you have for us? Feel free to raise your hand. Or did we just blow you away?
And I just drink tea. Imagine if I had coffee this morning. This is just tea, guys, green tea.
Any question? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I've heard the word Alexa quite a few times, but I have not heard the word Google Home or Apple or whatever it is. Any comments on that?
We chose Alexa. Alexa is leading the race right now, by far. Google Home is Google's trying their hardest to catch up. They will. I mean, there'll be multiple people in that space. We just chose Amazon because because of its penetration so far. Alexa's now part of standard equipment starting in 2018. I think Ford cars. They're just, Amazon's got one up on everybody right now. And Amazon also allows you to monetize differently than Google does. Was one of our main reasons too. I should pull my Alexa little thing out and play it.
Craig, you deal with different voice.
Later,
What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, one of the real restrictive factors for the Google device is you can only stream for a short period of time. You can't just turn on a radio station and let it go forever. They really want you to play their music and pay for their music service. For on demand, for short clips, for that sort of thing, it certainly is viable. But for a radio station that wants to get their presence in a home, it's really not.
The one other thing that we kind of, on that same token, is when you buy an Alexa, and I know this is kind of up in the air right now with TuneIn and the what's going to happen to TuneIn. There's obviously something going on with TuneIn. Alexa had a partnership with TuneIn where the radio station streams would work with Alexa. I call it with their first grade education. And when you buy Alexa and take her out of the box and set her up on Christmas Day and tell Alexa to play your radio station, if you're listed in TuneIn, Alexa immediately works without any app download. That was huge to me. Apps are great. They're wonderful. but they take time to grow and promotion to get people to download them. And Amazon, with this partnership with TuneIn, allows the radio stations to work out of the box. Now, if you're not on TuneIn today, you're kind of stuck because TuneIn's not accepting any new streams, and they haven't now for 6 months. I don't know if you even know any background on that or what's actually going on with TuneIn. Lawsuits?
It's copyright
Okay. That's,
infringement overseas.
okay, that's kind of what I figured. There's been some talks about TuneIn's probably going to disappear. Amazon does run their own databases on top of that, and if something's not right at TuneIn, Amazon, if you can get a hold of a real person, good luck with that. They can override the TuneIn database, but it's very simple. And we'll see a spike, and I'm sure you guys see it too. Christmas Eve, you see it a little bit, so some people got to open presents early. Christmas Day, our Amazon stuff goes through the roof. I mean, we literally from doing 2,000 requests a week to maybe 10 or 15,000 in a day. It's insane.
Sounds like a sales opportunity.
Oh, it is. It is. And we actually we do sell that. And while promotion wise too on your stations leading up to Christmas, make promotions that talk about, hey, if you're lucky enough to open up one of these things, make sure you ask her to play WVNO or whatever station. Absolutely, because those next 2 weeks are just amazing. And if you can retain a lot of those, that's a very important time.
Habit forming.
Absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely.
so yeah, have a part of the skill, be some kind of coupon, whatever.
Absolutely.
Download the skill to Alexa, ask it, hey, how do I get a free donut?
Yeah.
And she'll tell you where to go.
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
we're right up at the wire. Everybody needs a refill on coffee. It's 10:16. If anybody has any other follow-up questions for us and you want to talk to us, I'm sure all of us will hang out for a while. Otherwise, enjoy your day. It was great speaking to the group, and I'll turn it over to Blake.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was a great panel discussion. Really appreciate it. Hope you got some good out of that, everybody. And as you say, questions will be around for a little while. We're going to take a 14-minute break till 10:30, and then we have radio and the digital dashboard session will be here. The ATSC 3.0 session will take place in 280. The SNMP session will be in 283, and the wireless mic from Electrosonics will be in 284. So then we'll, following those, the second set of breakouts begin at 11:15, but you have some time to refresh the coffee, go talk with some more of the vendors, those that are now set up that weren't there this morning. So have fun.
Thanks, everybody.